My Weird School Special, Book Number 9. The Leprechaun is Finally Gone. Written by Dan Gutman. Pictures by Jim Pellot. Chapter 2. Top of the Morning. Everybody in the class wanted to touch Jake the Snake. Well, almost everybody. There was just one kid who didn't want to touch him. Me! I just said I wanted to touch Jake so the guys wouldn't make fun of me. So I touched Jake. He felt slimy and creepy and gross. I pretended I liked it. Mrs. Patty put Jake back in her basket. She was really excited about St. Patrick's Day coming up. You should all wear green, of course, she said. And we're going to have Irish step dancing and a 4-leaf clover hunt and a pickle parade and a pickle parade? Pickle-palooza, said Mrs. Patty. I'll tell you all about it next week. For now, I need to go visit the first graders, and Jake needs to eat lunch. What does Jake eat for lunch? Asked Alexia. First graders, replied Mrs. Patty. Gasp, we all gasped. I'm pretty sure Mrs. Patty was kidding about Jake the Snake eating first graders for lunch. After she left, we pringled up and walked 1,100,000 miles from the library to our classroom. I can't wait for St. Patrick's Day, Alexia said as we passed by the front office. I can, said Andrea. I don't like St. Patrick's Day. What is her problem? Maybe we'll see a leprechaun, said Ryan. Ooh, I hope so, said Emily. Leprechauns are cool, said Neil. Huh? A leprechaun? What's that? I asked. Everybody stopped and looked at me like I farted. AJ, said Michael. You don't know what a leprechaun is? Sure I do, I lied. Neil whispered in my ear that leprechauns are mischievous little guys who have beards and pull pranks on people. He said that if you catch a leprechaun, he'll give you a pot of gold he has hidden at the end of a rainbow. How do you know so much about leprechauns? I asked Neil. I saw one on a box of cereal, he replied. Everybody was buzzing about leprechauns. But not like bees, that would be weird. There's no such thing as leprechauns, scoffed Andrea. That's just another Irish stereotype. My dad has a type of stereo, I said. Andrea rolled her eyes at me. We were still talking about leprechauns when we got to the classroom. Our teacher, Mr. Cooper, was waiting for us. Okay, everybody, he said as we took our seats. Let's try to focus this morning. Why? I asked. We're not cameras. Not that kind of focus, dumbhead, Andrea said, rolling her eyes again. Andrea is always rolling her eyes when I say stuff. I wish her eyes would roll right out of her head. I wanted to say something mean to Andrea, but I didn't have the chance because Mr. Cooper told us to turn to page 23 in our math books. He loves math. I hate it. I reached into my desk to get out my math book, but you'll never believe what happened next. There was a sound in the distance. It was coming from down the hall. It sounded a little bit like geese honking. Or maybe somebody was letting the air out of a giant balloon. What's that annoying noise? Asked Alexia. It sounds like sheep being tortured, said Ryan, covering his ears. But it wasn't geese or balloons or sheep being tortured. It was our principal, Mr. Klutz. He was playing the bagpipes, which is a strange musical instrument that's made up of a bunch of pipes sticking out of a bag, so it has the perfect name. I know that song, Andrea said as Mr. Klutz walked into the classroom. It's When Irish Eyes Are Smiling. Top of the morning, Mr. Klutz said when the song was over. That was weird. Mornings don't have tops or bottoms. Mr. Klutz took off his green hat and did a little bow. He has no hair at all. I mean, none. I wonder if hats slip off his head all the time. Are you kids excited about St. Patrick's Day next week? Mr. Klutz asked. Yes, shouted all the girls. No, shouted all the boys. I noticed something unusual about Mr. Klutz. He was wearing a skirt. Excuse me, Mr. Klutz, I said. Why are you wearing a skirt today? It's not a skirt, AJ, he replied. It's a kilt. It looked like a skirt to me. Mr. Klutz is nuts. Andrea looked all mad as usual. They don't wear kilts in Ireland, she said. They wear kilts in Scotland. I didn't even know Ireland and Scotland were different places. I guess Mr. Klutz didn't either. I don't feel comfortable with this, Andrea complained. In Ireland, they don't do any of these silly things on St. Patrick's Day. What do they do? Asked Mr. Klutz. St. Patrick's Day is the day St. Patrick died, Andrea told him. It's a public holiday. People get the day off. They go to a parade. They go to church. And then they have a big meal. That's it. So there are no leprechauns? Asked Emily. No, said Andrea. No rainbows? Asked Alexia. No. No pot of gold? Asked Michael. No. St. Patrick's Day in Ireland sounds boring, I said. Andrea crossed her arms in front of her. That's what people do when they're mad. Nobody knows why. Sheesh, lighten up, I told her. Andrea needs to get a sense of humor transplant.